Bridget.
Wonderful. Thank you. Well, thank you very much for the invitation to share with you what BILD does, who we are, the impact that we have in municipal policy, but also other federal and provincial policy, how we work with governments and our membership, and how we work with the industry as a whole. So thank you for those who have made it and those who are coming. I appreciate your time. I do want to apologize that when I bring up my presentation, my notes are lower. So if I'm looking down, I apologize, but that's going to keep me on task, and trust me, you're going to want that. So if I can just share my screen, we can get started here. Okay, so you should have just BILD with a pencil and a graph. Excellent. So these are the few things that I'm going to be covering in this presentation. I'm going to tell you a bit about the association, the different tiers of our association, what BILD Lethbridge does with its advocacy, as well as some of the programs and services we offer our members, our committee mandates, what's on our radar for 2023, why you need to know about us, and then I'm happy to take any of your questions. So before we talk about what BILD Lethbridge is specifically, I want to explain to you how we are structured as an association. So our association is one association, but we're working at 3 levels: nationally with the Canadian Home Builders Association, provincially with BILD Alberta, and locally with BILD Lethbridge. Our members join BILD Lethbridge regionally, but they automatically become members of the provincial and national levels of the association. Each tier of the association works with the government at their level. And because many of the housing issues involved multiple levels of government, we frequently collaborate to ensure we have a consistent approach towards real solutions. And that's exactly what our association is about. We're a working association. We are directly in the trenches. We've got our fingers in things, and our mandate is to create real results. So we also collaborate informally, but also formally. So as the executive officer of BILD, I also sit on the board of directors for BILD Alberta, and I'm on the National Executive Council of CHBA. We're a nonprofit organization governed by an elected board of directors and a volunteer executive, and we're supported by professional staff. Our system of committees and councils bring together the builders and industry experts from across the country. We share information and ideas, and we formulate recommendations to government that improves the quality and affordability of homes. Our memberships consist of land developers, builders, and that includes module builders, renovators, trades, consultants, manufacturers, service professionals, and suppliers. So basically anybody who builds a house is part of our membership. And it's a very specific detail or skill set. So on the screen right now is CHBA's mandate. This by no means is the extent of their file. They work on a number of things, but at this time of high interest rates and high inflation and escalating construction costs, the need for offsetting government policy has never been greater when we're looking at affordability of ownership, especially for first-time home buyers. So looking at this slide, you'll see that there's 85 business members. Dealing with housing ownership and affordability, there's 4 real policy positions that we're working with the federal government on. One is moving towards 30-year amortization, reviewing the new housing GST rebate threshold, which has not been reviewed since 1991, looking at a sliding mortgage stress test. We know that the stress test has really been a barrier to people entering the market, and a number of other government policies affecting affordability. The other focus is sustainable building, both in the new building and the renovation side. CHBA National has a certification program in adaptive home, and this is all about accessibility and aging in place, and an environmental program called Net Zero. And this is a certification and labeling that moves home building to that goal of net zero. Also looking at the housing crisis, specifically looking at increasing market rate housing units. We just got a successful win with the GST rebate, so that was exciting to see, and hopefully will go a long way to increasing the rental stock in our communities. Building codes, this is always on our radar and something that CHBA actively participates in. Any cross-border issues that come up, they deal with that. Two examples is lumber and drywall. And they also have an awards program. They also have committees. So I talked about how our different committees, they work together, but they also have specific mandates within them. So they have the Canadian Renovators Council. What we're seeing, a larger portion of the economy is renovators, and it's important to our industry that the renovator standard is high. We see a lot of renovations and people entering the industry that do not do us any favors. So it's important that we work on policies and regulations that ensure that renovators are performing ethically and quality work. Modular Construction Council, Rick West is a member of our board. He chairs that council. The Net Zero Energy Housing Council, I can't see the bottom of that slide, Technical Research Committee, and the Urban Council. The Urban Council is important because the larger cities like Calgary, Edmonton, Vancouver, Toronto, they're seeing issues that aren't relevant to us. So it's important that they have their own council specific to what they're doing. Sorry. The other thing, in addition to all of that, CHBA offers our members national benefits. So these are discount programs that cross a variety of things: business tools, travel, insurance, TELUS. So there's a number of different sort of member deals that our members have access to as well. So moving on to the Provincial Association, this is 1,300 companies strong. And again, this isn't all the files that the provincial level of the association is working on, but some of the more recent larger files. You'll note that it's not CHBA, and that's a bit of a branding issue we have in our association. Back in 2017, the land developers from the Urban Development Institute merged with the provincial CHBA to create the Building Industry and Land Development Association. This made the association quite a bit broader. So now we're advocating on all efforts from underground utility to shingles and everything in between. The 2022 building codes and Alberta auto adoption, this is something that BILD Alberta has worked significantly on, because the codes have been adopted and in the spring they will be enforced. One of the concerns that we had as an industry is where the province would adopt and what energy tier they would adopt at, and that it's provincial wide. So we have done a tiered energy code roadmap looking at each of these different energy steps and the impact on affordability and even the gaps in resources. For example, step 5 isn't even doable. We don't have the electrical grid, we don't have the energy advisors. There's a lot of things that need to be in place, and it adds about $50,000 to a house. So we worked with the province on what tier to come in at, and we landed on tier 1. Frankly, most of our builders are already building at tier 2, but it was a good place to start to get us up to speed. And it was important that was provincial wide. In BC, it's adopted municipally. So you will see a different building code in Fernie than you would in Abbotsford. And this can create different expenses, and it also creates some confusion and difficulty for builders. So if we're going to make housing a priority, we really want to make it a lot simpler. They did a MGA review. Some of the areas that we have some concerns in is the city charters, and we're also looking at offsite levy financing, and I'm sure your communities all deal with that. They do conferences which offers educational opportunities and networking. They do housing report data monthly, and they also have an awards program. Some of the things that they worked on that you might be aware of is the mandatory new home warranty. To be a member of our association, every home builder and renovator has to have new home warranty. That was before it was mandatory in the province. So this demonstrates how our association is about raising the bar in the industry and its members, and often pushing government to do things that better the industry and make it stronger. Prompt payment legislation is another example. Land titles for condos, again, the work of the MGA, and we provided 29 red tape reduction recommendations to the government, of which they are now implementing. Other local HBAs, in addition to Lethbridge, are Wood Buffalo, Grand Prairie, Edmonton. You'll note here that Edmonton has a CHBA and a UDI. They decided not to merge under BILD because their issues are significant in and of themselves, and they felt that they needed individual associations representing their interests. And then Medicine Hat was the last BILD to join. The lens, though, are the same at all levels of this association. We work with government so members can create affordable, attractive, innovative, and energy efficient homes. Now moving on to BILD Lethbridge. I was hired in 2018, and my first job was to merge UDI with CHBA Lethbridge to create BILD. So here we are. I'm happy to see that we've done that. You can see that we're 94 companies. Our local economic impact, I bring this up to demonstrate the significance of our membership within the local economy. They represent 3,541 jobs, equates to $271 million in wages and $577 million in investment. So we are the largest employer and one of the largest economic drivers in Lethbridge. We have 20 builders and renovators, 3 land developers, and 71 general members. Our members are required to adhere to a code of ethics. All memberships are approved by the board, and they have to meet safety and warranty requirements. BILD Lethbridge Region is Lethbridge and 200 kilometers around the Lethbridge area. Our builders build in the Crow's Nest Pass, Tabor, Coaldale, Colehurst, the County of Lethbridge, Fort Macleod, and I know there are other communities that they build in, and also BC, as I've mentioned. We work closely with all levels of the association, the municipal government, both its administration and its political branch, and directly with the membership on improving, as I've said, the industry standards, government policy, regulations, and processes. This is the lion's share of the work that I do for the association. And I'll speak more specifically about some of those advocacy pieces when we get to that. But we also offer direct membership value. We host a number of educational events and social events throughout the year, either locally or in conjunction with the other levels of the association. Last year, we hosted 31 educational events. We're on track to do that again in 2023. This ensures that our members are up to date and can also network and support each other, which is a large part of the value of being part of an industry-specific association. In addition to the advocacy work we do locally, we also support local associations and the City of Lethbridge. We do this by being part of Team Lethbridge. I'm going to assume this group is fairly familiar with this, so I'm not going to talk a lot about it other than how it gave us the opportunity to support other organizations that do the work that crosses with the work that we do. So we were able to advocate with the minister on things like the Lethbridge Collegiate Pilot, the Lethbridge Dual Credits. We talked about some of the affordable housing initiatives. And so we had the ability to do that as part of Team Lethbridge, which is an important thing for us to be a part of. We also have scholarships that we offer our members. We fundraise at our events, and the 50/50 sales goes specifically to our scholarship program. Last year, we awarded 2. It's anywhere from 2 to 4 that we award, depending on the number of events and obviously how many 50/50 dollars we've brought in. This is specific to help students in the trade to manage some of their educational expenses. We have a number of signature events. This is our annual Parade of Homes. We've been doing this since 1966. This is an opportunity for us to showcase our builders and their models. It offers the community the ability to see the variety of builds. So we have everything from the entry level all the way to the aspirational $1.3 million house. And they're everywhere in the city. So it gives the citizens the ability to learn how each of these communities are different and what they offer. We have a dedicated website, and as you see here on the screen, we have a dedicated app. It has a number of features that allows the experience to be quite a bit easier to navigate, and also, again, to showcase our builders and also the members that participated in building that house. If you haven't gone, There's still time. It ends Sunday, so please download the app and have a good time. Although the Parade of Homes is only in Lethbridge or Lethbridge Homes, there's nothing to say that this can't be showcasing homes in other municipalities within our region. In fact, that's something I would like to see down the road, is expanding our program to also showcase other municipalities. Our second signature event is, as you've heard, at the provincial and national level. We have an awards program as well. It's quite robust. It's not a nomination program. Our builders enter their own work to be judged by experts across the country because they're proud of their company, they're proud of the work that they produce, and they're willing to be judged by their peers. And that's something I'm proud of. This is a really robust program, and it shows our members' willingness to celebrate what they do and learn from others as well. We recognize excellence in building, renovation, customer service, community development, marketing, safety, and community involvement. We present these awards in February at a gala. It includes Builder of the Year, Custom Builder of the Year, Renovator of the Year, and Developer of the Year as the major prizes. The gala is quite a major event. We spend about $40,000 producing it. You can see that last year, pardon me as I slip, we had 87 entries, 18 businesses, and 33 categories. We changed the program based on industry changes, so it always evolves to reflect the local landscape. And this is the task of the awards committee and the Builder Council committee. Our third event is the Southern Alberta Home, Garden, and now Leisure show. In the past, we partnered with Exhibition Park, but now the event is fully managed by BILD, and we've partnered this year with Maybell Consulting. They are an event and marketing planning company. We've re-envisioned the show, and we're excited to bring it to the next level. We'll be hosting a Who Builds It Best competition. This is a live building competition where competitors build projects within a set period of time using only materials provided. It's quite a fun thing to watch and experience while the show is happening. We have a high school division, and we also have a pro division, which are made up of our members and also trade students from the Lethbridge College. So we're happy to bring that again to this show. And as you can see on the screen, we have booked Anna Olson. She is a master chef and baker. She currently has 1.44 million YouTube followers, and she's well known within anybody who's a baker. So we're super excited to have her come on board. There's a lot more for us to announce in the coming days, so stay tuned. This might be a great opportunity or place for municipalities to showcase. Then moving on to our committees. This might be the most relevant to the work and the things that you're considering. And for me, this is the most valuable part of our association. This is where priorities are identified, any issues that are happening in the industry come up, where discussions happen, where we educate and support each other, where things are first identified, what we're going to do, how we can manage. You can see that we have 7 committees here. I won't go through all of them. A couple to touch on: safety. One thing most people don't know about us is we have a job site inspection program. This is where we have safety committee members go to build sites, and we examine them for safety and make sure that our members are actually walking the talk. This is a really great program, and because safety is such an important part of what we believe in. Builder Council is made up of general managers and owners of building companies. You can see the number of things that they're working on, and I'll talk about those a little bit later. Developer Council is made up of general managers and owners of land development. You can see a number of things that they're working on. I'll talk a little bit about that later. And the Government Action Committee. This is a standing meeting that we have with the Director of Infrastructure and the City Manager. It's made up of the chair of the Builder Council and the chair of the Developer Council, the president, and myself. This gives us the ability to have an open dialogue with the city about what's coming up with them, what's coming up with us to discuss some of those higher level things. For example, the housing starts in Lethbridge are extremely low. We can talk about the impact on the offsite levy, where we're going to move in the future, some of the things that are coming up. So it's an important ability for our industry to touch base with the municipality and them to touch base with the industry. Any municipality within that 200-kilometer can be a member of BILD. They can access and participate in any of our programs and services. The City of Lethbridge is a member. We have members of administration that sit on our committees. They regularly present and consult with our committees. If the municipality is looking at bringing in, say, a bylaw or they're reviewing a process, it will go to one of our committees to review and provide feedback on. Our members of council are also engaged. If they need more information on something before they review a policy, they contact us. So I want to take a quick second and just get on my soapbox for a little bit. The first time when I started here in BILD, there was kind of an adversarial relationship with the city. It was sort of, they were the rule makers and we were the industry, and it was about what you can't do, and there was kind of this headbutting going on. Over the last few years, that relationship has changed, and we really are more partners, understanding that our builders understand demand. Our builders are the ones who are building and designing our communities, taking the risk and investing. So there has been this real change from no, you can't, to how can we? Still recognizing the city is the regulatory body. They have master plans and a municipal development plan that they have to lens everything through. But this difference in approach has really benefited us in creating better communities and quality choices and a better way of meeting the housing needs and consumer demand in Lethbridge. So here's some of the things that are on our radar for 2023. Consumer confidence with the increase in interest rates, the high inflation, and the escalation of material costs. We're seeing obviously the erosion of affordable housing and affordable ownership. The changing builder landscape in Lethbridge. So the number of volume builders has shrunk. What does that mean? What does that mean for choice? What does that mean for starts? What does that mean for capacity? Code changes, as I mentioned, they've already been adopted, and enforcement will be in spring 2024, making sure that our members are educated and up to speed on any changes. Looking at labor shortages, there's a number of things and initiatives we're involved in with the Lethbridge College and through careers in the school divisions. And on the municipal policy front, over the next year and a half, we'll be looking at design standards reviews, specifically arterial roads, at the size of those arterial roads and efficient land use, lighting standards and other construction standards, offsite levy bylaw review, looking at what that levy is going to cover in the future, how it's going to be financed, a number of things that we're looking at to revitalize that levy. The land use bylaw review, things that come of interest to the builder and the developer community is obviously rezoning. There can be a number of issues with NIMBY, so looking at what are the permitted use in zoning areas and opening that up. So something like secondary suites or auxiliary suites are something that's permitted versus having to go to rezoning. Another example would be parking requirements. Often parking requirements are in conflict with density goals. So looking at what do we really need for parking requirements. The school development site, this is something that is a resolution that's coming forward to the AM conference next week. We were involved with the City of Lethbridge in crafting that resolution. And basically it's about ensuring that the province is footing the bill for the cost of school site development. At this point, it's not. It's falling to the developer. So again, this resolution is coming forward. So if you're a voting member, please look for this resolution and vote in favor. We're looking at infill guidelines. We're looking at development costs. We consulted with the city on the Housing Accelerator Fund, providing a letter of support and some background information for them. If your municipality has also applied for this, we can offer some assistance on what that might look like. And also infrastructure investments. This kind of goes back to infill guidelines, but can be a barrier to reaching those housing goals because of the cost of infrastructure. So why do you need to know about us or any of this? I'm hoping that you'll come away with the understanding that we are industry experts. We're willing to share, we're willing to partner. We think it's important that we are actively involved with all levels of government as the experts, and we want to work with municipalities to help them achieve their housing goals. We've had an example of how we've done this by engaging with other municipalities. We've had them present to our builder council. Some of the things they learned was, what are the builders looking for? One thing, for example, can you prove need? Where is the need? You understand your communities. How can you communicate that to the builder so that they're comfortable that you're investing in your community? You're working on attraction, you're working on retention, you're making the investments that you need to in infrastructure. Any funding opportunities, I mentioned the Housing Accelerator Fund. Are there opportunities there? The biggest thing that came to the front for me was the land cost. Material costs for building are the same or higher in rural areas, but where there's a real differentiating factor, it's the cost of land. So there's some opportunities there to attract builders to your community, but a few things that you could know to make it an easier sell. So I know that was a lot of information. I'm going to bring up and see if you guys are still awake and with me. And I'm happy to take any of your questions.
Anyone want to kick off the questions? I don't have any in the chat box, but feel free to unmute and fire away. Scott.
I can jump in here. First, thanks for the presentation, Bridget. I appreciate it. You were mentioning not having rezoning, but having like secondary suites and stuff like that. So that be, I guess, can you expand on what you guys would be looking for a little bit more from a land use bylaw perspective on that?
Sure. So in the particular zones, there are areas where secondary suites are not permitted and it has to go to a rezoning. This often brings the community out in against having secondary suites in their neighborhoods. So if we're developing zoning areas where it's permitted, it doesn't have to go back to rezoning. So it's just understood that the ability to build secondary housing or secondary suites in that area is permitted.
Okay, so the end goal of that would just be reducing red tape and trying to achieve that, so that it wouldn't be kind of hung up or, like, I don't want to say held hostage by a group of people, but kind of kiboshed by a group of people.
Right, and it really sort of takes it out of that political arena and makes it more about the housing.
Excellent. I have a question from the chat asking, do you have to be a member to access any of the services that you had spoke about?
You do. That's the benefit of membership for sure, but you don't have to be a member to request to meet with any of our committees. And you certainly don't have to be a member to give me a call and ask me questions, but to take advantage of the other programs, to be actively involved on the committees, whether that's locally, provincially, or federally, those are things you have to be a member for.
Thank you. Peter.
I'll follow on that one. So number one, what does membership look like? And then number two, it's likely that not many people on this call knew that BILD has an area that goes 200 kilometers out from the city of Lethbridge in all directions. Can you talk about BILD's history in the region? Any efforts that you've had in the past or difficulties that you've had in reaching out and getting membership from across the region? And are there issues in the fact that so much of the activity and the policy work that you guys do is centered in the city of Lethbridge, which is a barrier to regional inclusion? How do you deal with those issues?
Shoot, I should have written that down. What was the first one?
Sorry, what does membership look like, since she just asked about membership?
So what specifically do you mean?
Like, what does it cost?
Oh, okay.
What does it involve? Yeah.
So a general member is $1,150. And again, that is also money that's going to the provincial association and the national association. And then we keep a portion of that. So that's what the membership fee is. And then there's all the member benefits that come with that. And we have members that are just happy to pay the membership and know that we're doing this good work. And then members that are involved in everything, come to everything, sponsor everything on every committee. So engagement is really up to the member. So there's plenty of opportunity to be just the member that's happy to let you do everything, to the member that really wants to be involved in on the boards and committees. And then your other question was around history in the region and branching out into that 200 kilometer range. Admittedly, it's been difficult. We do focus primarily on the city of Lethbridge. That's where our builders are. I would love to see us branch out further. We do have members in Tabor. And as I've said, some of our builder members also build in the area within that 200 kilometers. It would be great to see other municipalities engage with our members if they are experiencing difficulties with other procedures or processes in other municipalities. It's not brought to my attention, and it would be great if it were, because the easier that we can work together and the more seamless that we can do things and identify wherever there may be barriers, the better off we're all going to be. That would take increasing membership, that would take municipalities joining, seeing the value in what the membership can bring them, and ideally opening up those conversations.
I think this one is just a little bit more, so staying on that same target, but is there a specific example of what BILD has done for municipalities outside of the city limits?
I guess if I look to that, I'm going to look at what BILD Alberta does. So a lot of the work that they do benefits the industry and in many cases the municipalities as well. It's not to say that the association is always in line with municipalities are looking for. There's certainly probably some instances where they're not necessarily aligned. Probably the city charters some things in the city charters might be an example of that. But really everything that we do from a provincial and even federal level impacts the municipal level.
Peter has another question.
Yeah. So one of the reasons why we're hosting webinars like this is because every single one of our communities is struggling with housing supply. I mean, it's an endemic Canadian problem right now, and everybody on this call has got an interest in trying to provide more housing. I guess I'll start at the philosophical end and try to get your perspective on this, since you do deal with these policy issues and contribute to the conversations at a high level. The younger generation is having a really hard time accessing housing, and the prospects for the kids who are coming up right now and getting out into the housing market are worse than mine at 40 years old, and my kids' prospects are looking to be even worse than that. Where does your association and the other provincial and federal branches of your association sit on the balance between private and public responsibility for providing affordable or achievable housing? What's the conversation playing out in your committees and at your board tables around this issue?
It's a really great question, and I'm hoping what you got from my presentation, I know it was quick and it was a lot, is that every level of this association is concerned with affordability. We're concerned with the first-time home buyers' ability to get into the market. We're concerned about the cost of housing. From a general perspective, we're seeing escalations all across the board. So this is every single level of our association is looking at how we can assist with that. Our committees are examining sort of some higher level examples, is some recommendations that we provided to the province, and we did provide some recommendations to the city government on how they could assist in making development less expensive. Also looking further, making the dialogue about whatever policy you're developing, you have to have a lens of what is the end cost to the buyer. And I think this is a real shift in how administrations have thought in the past. It was, we need to do this, this is for safety, we need to do this, this is for transportation, we need to do this, this is for, but it was never really if all of these policy changes are added up, this has a significant impact in people being able to access the market. So in Lethbridge, if the house goes up by, I think it's $10,000, 700 households will no longer be able to afford to get into the market. So when we're talking about different government policies, all of them or any of them that have a price tag, there needs to be the conversation about what is the end price to the user. So that's kind of a high level discussion that we have at the municipal committee tables. But then we're looking at those more federal policies when we're looking at that 30-year amortization. We're looking at the impact of the mortgage stress test. We're looking at the new GST rebate. Part of that was looking at rental. So not everyone can move into ownership. Some will have to stay in rental. Do we have enough rental supply? Right now, we have a real disconnect between people moving into ownership because of interest rates, because of inflation, because of the cost of building. So they're staying in rental. That's going to increase the cost of rental if people aren't moving into ownership. So how can we break down some of those barriers? Again, affordability. So having secondary suites, or the ability to have secondary suites, so that you can buy a house and also finance it with a rental. So these are all things that we're looking at on how we can impact as an industry and help move people into the market. We know that Canadians want ownership, and it's an important way that Canadians build equity. They build a financial future for themselves. So we take that seriously, and those are some of the things that we do.
Leanne has a question.
I just wanted to ask, so I'm in the Emerging Customer Solutions team at Fortis, and I sit on a few committees with BILD Alberta Calgary Region.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you at all.
Sorry, I just realized my thing wasn't down. Okay, so I'm Leanne. I'm in the Emerging Customer Solutions team at Fortis Alberta, and I sit on two kind of committees with BILD Alberta Calgary Region. And so our focus is really around, net zero homes and, challenges around that, and really like working together with the developers on how to, overcome those challenges in regards to like utilities and affordability. And I was curious, like, is there overlapping or sharing of information between those different regional BILD groups? Because okay, that was my first question. I'll be like Peter, first question.
I'll write it down.
Second question was really around, so part of what in terms of like net zero buildings, we've been engaged along with other utilities in the Calgary area, like including gas, and BILD Alberta has been the table, was the Alberta Eco Trust's net zero, well, they're now calling it emission neutral building information exchange. So it's proceeding through Alberta Eco Trust. Now, one thing I repeatedly shared through the stakeholder engagements was that, there's one set up in Edmonton, there's now going to be one set up in Calgary, and those are being funded through those municipalities. But what about the rest of Alberta, right? Like we're still only focusing on just two geographical centers, which is obviously important for Fortis Alberta, that our customers have access to information. So I was also going to see like if there's some government advocacy there around either the rest of the communities outside of those areas being able to partake in those, access those, because I think that's where they're trying to figure out like how can this information exchange be set up to help developers as you kind of go forward into that net zero building code, which is 7 years out ish.
Yeah, coming fast for sure.
Two questions.
Okay, so the first one, overlap with BILD Calgary and any of the other BILD association levels in the province. We do meet regularly. Our executive officers have a standing meeting that we meet and talk about. I sit on the BILD Alberta board of directors. Our president also sits on the board. So this is places where we have those larger conversations. It's not unusual for one EO to pick up the phone and talk to another. A good example of this is, so Brian at BILD Calgary, here in Lethbridge, one of the things that we've done is try to marriage the immigration population moving in and the hiring in our industry. So we've worked with the college on a construction language specific programming called Pathways to the Trades. I was invited by Brian to come up and present at BILD Calgary's Stampede breakfast that they had. And I think there was a member of Fortis at that breakfast. But this was an opportunity for us to share how we're working with the immigration population, with the college and our industry, so that we can move people into employment that are new to our city, which is a win-win-win all the way around. So there's an example of how I presented to a National Executive Officer Council meeting, and he heard it there and brought me up to Calgary. And now it's something we're talking about across the province, about how we can make that marriage. And so that's just one example, but we're doing that all the time. And then that sort of does dovetail into asking about sort of the larger net zero and how the transfer of information, how that would work with our local association is through our technical committee. So our technical committee will have a representative on the provincial committee, and they would report back to ours. So that would be probably, other than through the board itself and our connection to BILD Alberta board, that would be the specific connection in anything technical that BILD Alberta is working on.
Okay. I was just thinking maybe that's an opportunity to get involved given that you said it's outside of Lethbridge, not just the city of Lethbridge. You said it's greater than that area.
Yeah, I would like to learn more about that. I'm really not familiar.
Yeah, be happy to. Yeah.
Excellent. I have two questions in the chat box that fall under the encouraging of development. So I'm going to kind of a two-part question. So the first part is, how can BILD help to attract land developers to invest in rural communities? And then the second part is encouraging landowners to choose to develop. Is there any way to provide support or encourage that to happen? Ultimately, so this is from the village of Barnwell, and to see it happen, the cost of development is the deterrent, not just the actual construction cost, but the offsite levy and municipal reserve as well. So yeah.
So what immediately comes to mind is data. So we're a broker. So I can bring people to you, but what ultimately businesses decide to do is up to them. So other than being a resource for Barnwell to maybe put them in touch with Melcor, or maybe the city of Lethbridge Land, or maybe it's even the Trilogy Group if they're looking for specific information, or if they're looking to talk to someone about investment. I'm a broker, so I can make some of those connections. As far as incentivizing landowners to build, again, it's the same thing. What do Barnwell understanding what it is that they're looking for, what might be available to incentivize the builder. I can give connections or make introductions to builders. So that's the role that BILD would play. So more of a broker resource.
Appreciate that. Was there any other questions or follow-ups on some of the comments that have been made? Peter has a question in the chat. Can you tell us about your members' experience, federal and provincial funding programs that are available right now to incentivize new builds? Have any of your members used them successfully to build housing in communities that are not Lethbridge?
I know that some members have, through the city, applied for Rapid Housing Initiative. I think that's federal. That was unsuccessful, sadly. And I think they're trying to figure out why. But we do have other builders that are currently working with other municipalities. It's at the beginning stages, so I don't want to say a lot. But I think they are also accessing some resources. But I can't tell you specifically what, but there are builder members that are looking outside of Lethbridge and how they can do that, and they're in conversation with municipalities, again, with some of the things that I mentioned earlier on that slide. What is the municipality bringing to the table? What is the real need? Builders aren't going to go to an unknown market and build spec houses. So is there opportunity for pre-sales? So is there an opportunity maybe to pool some money to bring in a project? So it really is about opening up those conversations with those builders, and then the municipality understanding what programs they do have access to. And some of our builders would be more aware of that. But I think the expectation is that the municipality brings that to the conversation.
Peter, you have a follow-up?
Yeah, I put this question to you before when we were talking, Bridget, and I'm curious if you could speak about it to the group. If you were a municipal staff member in one of these towns that's kind of out on the edges of the region, it's kind of off the beaten path, and the business case is tight. Like Marcus and Raymond, he's got viable builders who will build single family homes in there, can make a profit. But places like Vulcan, Carmen Day, Coots that are on the call, if you're trying to crack this nut and you know that if you get new housing in your village, it sells immediately. Somebody's willing to move into it, or there's somebody who is aging in the village who wants to move into an affordable housing unit or something smaller, which frees up their current house. You know that if you can increase supply, it will be filled, and you need to increase supply. But you also know that the business case isn't there yet. A builder can't build a unit in your town and get profit out of it yet. What would you do if your straight up goal is supply? What would you do?
I would really dig into what those grant programs are, what funding opportunities are available, what incentives can you offer a builder, even if it's, the builders are in it to make a profit. So that's just the deal. So if you've already got, the supplies there, then that's one of the hurdles you've already reached. You can demonstrate that you build it, it will sell. But what sort of incentives can you offer to make that margin a little wider? And so are there federal rapid housing initiatives, housing accelerator fund? What other things are available? Are there investors that are willing to pool? I would examine how you can widen that, what you bring to widen that margin, and then individually sit down with some of the builders and say, here's what we have as an idea. Maybe understanding that multifamily is more affordable than single family. Do you have a market for that? Maybe some purpose-built rental, which is an entirely different investment stream than new home builders. So also knowing who to approach. So I would think understanding all of those things and then working from there.
Excellent. And then I think our last question will be, do you have any experience, or do any of your builders have experience with 3D printing builds?
No, not that I'm aware of. I've heard it sort of fluttered about. I think I heard Sheldon Anderson, who's the Center of Trades. I probably shouldn't say that specifically, but I think he was mentioning something about 3D printing and building. So it's an interesting thing. We do have Triple M, who is a module builder, and they do a lot of prefab stuff, obviously. So that is, I think, part of an increasing area that I think the industry is going to be looking at, is more prefab components. But the 3D is interesting. I don't know a lot about it, and I'm not sure how much our members know.
Wonderful. Any last minute questions from the group? Oh, hello. Last one coming in. Are any of your members involved in building tiny homes with solar?
So the only member specifically that I know around tiny homes or auxiliary units is Triple M. And all of our members have the ability to add solar.
Excellent. Thank you. In the interest of respecting everyone's time, I want to thank you for your presentation. Are we able to send out your contact information just when we send out the recording for this to the registrants?
Yes, absolutely.
Wonderful. And for those of you on the call, thank you again for taking the time to learn a bit more about BILD, and hopefully there's some opportunity to partner or work together to bring a bit more housing supply into the boroughs.
Yes. Thank you, everyone.
Appreciate it. Thanks, guys.